All right, so we're going to continue on today, and I'm going to take it a step backwards and try to describe this concept of the context a little more simply. So I created a little website last night that, if we look at it, here it's called Context, and if I look at that in my browser, you can see that it's a little more simple to understand. All right, so this is a website that you're used to. You have a body, and I've put borders around everything so you can see where things are responsive and where they're not. So body by default is the 100%. It's the 100% of your web browser, right? So you see that it becomes responsive. It enlarges as I expand, and it contracts down to whatever. The blue border is always visible completely, whereas the others are now off to the right of the screen. All right, so this is a standard fixed width website where my wrapper, this is my main code. This is 960 pixels across here. And then I might have some inner things like a header and a nav at the top, and then I might have more content down below, obviously. But just to give you the idea of the context, I wanted to have some nested elements that we can play with. So obviously, if I shrink this down, it's not responsive. It just flows off to the right of the screen. And if I make it really big, then you see these sites where we have a big margin on the right and the left, right? I've centered my wrapper with some CSS, okay? So let's play with that. But first, I found the problem with PHP Storm and Chrome not working with the live edit. All right? And this fixes a bunch of problems I was having even with Rails working under Chrome. So to get this to work, you have to install the plugin like we did before, and we got to the point we turned on the plugin in PHP Storm. We added the extension to Chrome, and then we see it up here, and it's just not working, right? So what I did was, under Settings in Chrome, you go down to Advanced Settings for anybody having this problem, and you go to Change Proxy Settings, and that brings up the system, the Microsoft Windows Internet settings that apply to all the browsers, and we want to go and change this LAN, this local area network settings. So by default, we're using this proxy server because we're at school, and this is why it worked at home for me, but not here. This is using a proxy, and so when it tries to go to this port, this little web server that the extension is using on Chrome, it can't get to it. It's trying to go out through the proxy. It's trying to go out through Spokane Community College's main proxy server. So all I have to do is check this and say bypass the proxy server for local addresses. How simple is that? That took a couple months to finally track that down. So that's all done. We're all happy now. And if I turn on live editing now, this will eventually connect. Yeah, it's JetBrains IDE support, right. Of course, now it's not going to work for me. I just had this working minutes ago. I mean, crazy. So let's turn on live edit. Let's turn it off and on again just to make sure that we're okay. It'll try to connect. What's happening in the background really is that this JetBrains extension is opening up a little web server inside of Chrome so that PHP Storm can send commands to the browser and highlight things and do different cool stuff with it. So let me stop and restart my Chrome. And there we go. Now it popped up. It says it's connected. And now as I change this, see, I can actually type inside of my browser. This is the body. And you notice that I didn't refresh my browser at all. and it changed the HTML in the page. Isn't that cool? That's just amazing. That's just really sweet. The other thing is that it does is that if I'm highlighting a piece, it will highlight the area over here where I'm at. Well, it used to. It did work at home. No, just putting my cursor there changed it over here. So why is that not working now? Let's close those. I think the problem was I had 2 pages open. So let's open this guy again. All right. So now as I move my cursor around, it highlights the area that I'm on, and it even tells me the size of the thing that I'm working on. So this div wrapper here is 968 pixels. As I enlarge it, it's still 968 pixels. All right? I don't know why do I have 960? I probably should have. Yeah, that's it. There you go. Thank you. That was a question for the class. Thank you, Kyle. All right. So, isn't that cool? I can change stuff in my style sheet even, and make my let's make my border 8 pixels, and force it to recompile, and it changes automatically over in the right. So I can change style sheets without doing anything, and Chrome just reloads it. Isn't that cool?
How did you turn on and off the JetBrains again in the PHP store?
For that, you have to install the plugin first of all, and you go to the plugins, browser repositories. You look for live, and it won't find it because I've already installed it. I think. Yeah, here it is, Live Edit, and you double-click that, and it will install it. Mine's already installed, so it doesn't do that. And this once you do that, it will pop up with a little window here saying to install the extension. Okay, and this link takes you right to, on normal computers, would take you right to the extension store for Chrome, and you just install it there. And then I had to restart my browser to get that to work right.
So you don't turn it on and off?
No, you don't have to turn it on and off here. Over here in the PHP Storm, you have to turn on Live Edit.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't show up until you install the plugin. All right? Everybody with me on that?
I don't have a proxy set, so it's not. But it's so I can't open it.
Still not working?
It's not working.
All right.
But I'm not on a school computer, so.
Yeah, I don't know why. Restart your PHP and your browser. That doesn't hurt anything. All right, so let's move into. I wanted to talk a little bit more about some Sass, since you guys were all excited to make some of this stuff variables yesterday as we were going through the site. So before I dig in and make this little piece responsive, I wanted to show you how we can write functions in Sass. Okay, so we can do some programming that even pass variables into our little functions that we write, or methods, whatever you want to call them. So in Sass, we can start with this @ mixin. That's a keyword. That's like a def statement in Ruby or a function statement in JavaScript. That's going to define a bunch of code. Okay? So this is the name of our method. I'm calling it debug border. And I'm passing it in a color, some color value as a variable that I'm going to use. And what my method does is just output an entire CSS attribute. And so I'm going to say, I want this to be a border, 3 pixels, solid, and then whatever color they pass into my method. All right? Everybody understand that so far? We're making a little method and having a variable that I'm going to use throughout my code. And I can have more than one line of code here. I can have a bunch of stuff in here. And what this does is it's like an include, and we actually use the word include, @ include, and then the name of our mix-in, the name of our method that we had up here, and then we pass in the color or the variable, the value of the variable that's going to happen. So what's going to happen is here, as the Sass compiler comes through and looks at this, it says, oh, you have an include. Let me go run this little function. I'll pass in blue. Blue goes into my $color call variable. And the point of my whole method is just to output this border attribute. And I'm going to replace the $call with the letters blue. And so this entire line here is going to be replaced by this entire line with the blue instead of the column. So just like a method, just like a function in JavaScript. Everybody got that? Any questions on that? So now I can have called that different ways. So I'm calling it with a blue border for my body, a red border for my wrapper, a green border for my header, and a pink border. I had to have a pink in there for my nav. All right, and then I had a gray down here for my other pieces here somewhere. Here, this is a gray value, dark gray. Yeah, why doesn't it? Why we should do that? All right, that's even a little darker. Sounds good. All right, any questions on that? All right, so let's go through and try to make this responsive now, okay? So I'm not going to change any of the HTML. We're just going to be working in this style sheet. And we want to start by changing some of these values. So remember yesterday we started with the width, and we came to our wrapper, and we said, okay, we want our wrapper to not be 100% because that would be the body. We want it to be something less than that. So we chose a value of 90%. Remember that? There was no calculation really involved in that. We just kind of figured that we want our wrapper width to be 90%. And then I'm going to leave in here that this was originally 960 pixels. All right, so now the wrapper, you can see, is as responsive as the body. As I enlarge and contract that, it's still some percentage of the entire width of the browser. And as I get bigger, that margin gets bigger. Okay, so percentages are the way to go here. Now I need to go back down farther and look at my header. All right, my header was wrapped inside of is inside of my wrapper. So let's go look at my header. I had 900 pixels here, so I'm going to make that the comment. And I need to have a value here using that. Using that formula that we talked about yesterday. Which is this. So let's copy that in to my context thingy here so we can see that. So the target that I want is going to be the result that I want is going to be the target divided by its context. So as we move down into the hierarchy, our context changes. So the context of the header is the width of its parent. So what is the parent of the header? The wrapper. Okay, so the wrapper had a width originally of 960 pixels. So we want to divide 900, the width of what the header used to be, by its context, 960. So we're going to say, we're going to use the Sass's division here. We're going to say 900 divided by 960. All right? So but what we have to do is, this is going to be a percentage, right? And there was a special method that was allowed that. So we're going to say percentage of that value. That's a Sass method that's going to calculate the percentage. Okay, so now the header is some percentage of the wrapper, its parent. So as we enlarge that, you see that it stays contextually relative to its parent. All right? So it always has a little bit of margin, but as it grows, we have a little more margin between the header and its parent. Does that make a little more sense in terms of the context? Is that helping a little bit? It was a little too complicated in that other one. I see that now. All right, so let's do the nav now. The nav has a different context. We move down. Originally, the nav had a width of 500 pixels. So we'll make that its comment. And we want to divide 500 by what? 900? Okay, because that was the headers, which is the parent of the nav, right? So we're going to divide that by 900, and we're going to call that a percentage. All right, and so with our live little chromage going on there, so it enlarges and contracts as well. And as we shrink, now our links are going to start to collapse on top of each other, and that's a different issue. But our nav now is still relatively the same width as based on its parent as it is in the small version versus the large version. So this percentage width here is relatively the same. Yes, absolutely. An if statement would be perfect in this case. And how do we do that? With media queries. That's what we're going to get into later. And so actually we could do that now with this simpler version. Might be a little easier to see. So media queries are a way to have a breaking point. We call them breakpoints in the size of our browser. As we shrink, we hit a breakpoint and we can start to apply different CSS at each of those breakpoints. All right. So any questions on this so far? Does that make sense now? The context of the width? That makes more sense? All right. All right. So before we get into the media queries, I wanted to talk a little bit about a reset or this normalize style sheet that is given to us. I don't have it here, do I? I just see that. Great. Pause. Where did my normalize go? No, this is all valid. No, but they expand for its compiled version of the. That's all that is. Yeah. No. It comes with, when you create a new PHP project, it comes with this normalized CSS. So let me just do that. I'll just create a new one. Trash. All right. Hello. Oh, I was recording all that. Isn't that nice? All right. Well, there you go. I had to go get the normalized CSS file from a new project because I deleted it out of here somehow. This gets created when you create a new PHP Storm project from the boilerplate HTML option. And these are what they call reset style sheets that try to make all the browsers start from a main point. And most professional CSS designers use something like this so that they don't have to worry excessively about the different browsers. Because every browser has a default font size, right? And sometimes they're 16 pixels, and IE always has to be different. They're like 14 pixels or something like that. So in order to fix that, they try to take and create a CSS, a style sheet that fixes all those problems. So for instance, this one corrects a display area in IE 6, 7, 8, and 9 in Firefox 3. So it takes all of these tags and makes them display as a block. So they all start out the same. The other browsers already display them as a block, but this won't hurt anything for those browsers. It just re-changes that style sheet, right? So if you look at these, most of these are IE problems. Look at that, IE problem.
We're supposed to have
IE problem. I would use this now. It's when you create a new project in PHP Storm, it creates it for you. There are also, this is one of them.
In the Chrome too, and it's the first one.
Yeah, let's go search for some of these. So Normalize CSS. There you go. So they're all over the place. There's another one called Reset that the Eric Meyer uses, and this is the Reset style sheet that he uses.
Oh, so we can just.
You can just copy those and paste them. You don't have to create them yourself.
Okay.
So, all right. And so what they're doing, they take margin and padding off of everything. They fix these display issues and make you start from the same point. Right. It makes you have a starting point where every browser theoretically is equal now. It's not ideal. It doesn't fix everything, but it has been out there for years, yes. All right, so there you go. It fixes the H1, so they're all the same as some portion of an M. So I highly recommend you use that. And to use that, you just put it in your style sheet folder and require it in your HTML. And you would want to include that first. All right? So that's something we have to do. Make sure you do that. It's a good idea. So moving on. Where was I now? Media queries. Okay, good. Okay. So going back to our style sheet, our media queries, going back to our Sass here, we can start to have these breakpoints. And media queries were designed to, you guys have all done a print style sheet. Remember that assignment?
Yes.
You guys loved that one. And that was basically a media query where you had a different style sheet loaded for the media of print, right, versus display. So these are the same types of systems, but we can add some variables to these media queries. Okay, so let's show you some down here at the bottom. I'm going to add a media query, and these started with media, surprisingly, at media. And then for the media we're looking at, see how even IntelliSense came up with, there's a bunch of these, screen, print. There was even a mobile one at one point, but nobody used it. So now we're back to these variable things. And CSS also has the concept of some Boolean expressions. So just like in programming, we can use an and or an or. So we want to make sure that if our media is the screen and we want to have a max width, we can set a width of our screen is going to be at 1460. Let's see, let's make it 1200 pixels. All right? If that is the case, that's like an if statement. If that is the case, apply the style sheets that are inside this block. So I can put any other style sheets inside of this, and just as a test, we'll say the background color is going to be gray. All right? And we can do another media query of the screen and a max width of something smaller than that. Let's say 960 pixels. And in this case, that's another if. So this is an if, or like an if-else, because one of these is going to override the others if it gets larger and larger. So let's change the background color. Let's see, this was, we have to do this as a body. I forgot to do a body. All right, so there's a body, and in this case, so I'm going to copy these now. And if it's 960, I'm going to make it a different color. I like blue, thank you. All right. So let's see what happens now if I enlarge my screen. So as I hit that breakpoint, the background color is applied, in this case, at 1200 pixels. As I get larger than that, it's going to use these style sheets. When I get less than that and larger than 960, it's going to use these style sheets. So as I shrink down, you can see the breakpoint here. See that? Ding, 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 ding. Isn't that cool? So I can put my whole bunch of different style sheets in here to change things, to position stuff around based on this screen width, to remove things if I wanted to, take out the main header picture, all kinds of stuff inside of each of these if statements. Okay? So let's do some more. Let's just add a couple more. Media, screen, and a max width of, what's the other one I chose? 768. Yes, you can do greater than, equal than, max, minimum width, maximum width. There's a lot of those, and I'll put that URL up to show some of those. Well, I think you're supposed to be researching those anyway in your web research. Isn't that right? I don't know. I'll have to look. But anyway, we can do that. So here's we'll do some more body tags here, and we'll go all the way down to 320, I think it was. 480. Let's do 480. Now these are the standard ones based on iPads, and this would be a 1280 probably. iPads and iPhones in their horizontal and portrait modes, and so a lot of people use those because they have the most people using the web on the iPads. So let's make this. No, we're not going to keep it blue. We're going to make this orange and red. And then we could do even a smaller one. Oh, let's say 320. We'll make this one yellow. You got to spell yellow right. All right. So here we go. In our largest one, it's gray. As we move down, we're going to hit the breakpoint of blue. And as we get smaller, we're going to hit the breakpoint of orange. And then we should hit red. And then we should hit, I can't get small enough to hit that 320. So this would have to be like 380, probably, something like that. There we go. So it doesn't let me shrink it far enough in this case. So isn't that wild? That's like a 60s disco or 70s disco. Woohoo! So the point of that is that I can put any style sheets I want that only apply at this particular resolution. So I can start manipulating things around and moving things around and positioning them differently. And really what happens is, in a lot of cases, you're designing 5 different websites, and you're putting the CSS into each of these media queries. It sometimes feels like that because you have to make so many different little changes to make this all work right. So, for instance, as we move down, we might change these links. As I move down, let's see, what is a good width? About here, they start to break. So, in the blue, let's see. No, let's go all the way down here into this one. Let's stack them. Let's stack our links instead. So if we look back up at my LI, I'm doing this display inline. So let's change my LIs in here to be block. That didn't work. Yeah, let's take it. I've got a UL and a nav both. So, and while we're here, I want to redescribe the concept in Sass of this nesting, which you can't do in normal CSS. So this will ruin you from ever using normal CSS again. I can nest these, and what that does is these are all inheriting its parent classes. There we go. So when we move down all the way to the bottom level, I'm now stacking my links, and that makes sense. That might make a lot of sense here. And I might make these, I don't know, width of 100%. See if that actually does something. All right, it made them even a little bigger. All right, so I can start to manipulate my elements on the page based on the screen size. And that's the whole crux of responsive design. Changing things from pixels to ems and from pixels to percentages, and relaying things out when necessary using media queries. And then the last thing, the main piece is images, which I know you guys are waiting for. So I want to get through that real quick. All right, so here's, I added an image to my project, and I added an image to my HTML. And so this is just pulling one out of my images folder, and this is the 215 by 150 pixel guy here. So to make this responsive so that it shrinks a little bit, I need to change the image style sheet. Let's see if I can get this to work. And I can do this all the way up here. It doesn't have to be in the image query. For all my images, I want to have a max width of 100%. Okay? So this probably won't affect it because it's too small. My image is too small. So let me bring in a bigger image. All right. So I borrowed an image from National Geographic site just to show an example. And I just put the URL in there. So this is now responsive. That's a big image. Obviously, it doesn't fit my thing yet. But as I scroll down, it resizes the image down and shrinks it down percentage-wise because its max width is contained by its parent container, and it just shrinks it down. Isn't that cool? That's really all you have to do for most images. Now, absolutely. That's the next issue, is that ideally, at some point, you could actually change the image itself into a smaller image and load that one differently. Yeah. But this, isn't that cool? It flips around really nicely. So there you go. That's a quick example. All right, any questions? Yes, yes.
If it was on a phone, it would still be loading that
Exactly right. That's what we were just saying. It's loading all of this data to display this little image, which is not ideal, but it's a start. So.
You also might want to limit its growth.
Yeah, you can say, yeah.
Max, like putting, instead of just doing a 100%, putting a max width of something on the image tag so that it won't grow.
Right.
Well, it won't look at it when it pulls it all the way out.
Yeah, but if that image is larger than
Yeah.
what it's doing to its nav.
Yeah, it pushes
So
my
he
nav
doesn't
down.
want it that big.
No.
So he'd either have to size it down.
Right.
But
Yeah, I would size it down
if you're
typically.
for media points, you would want to maybe limit the width of
Yeah.
the image because even though on a widescreen he wants it that big, right here he wants it half that size.
Yeah.
But he's
Well, I understand, but the width is coming from its container, not the image itself, and so he just changed the container around.
Yeah.
right.
And ideally, what I would do is serve a different image based on the screen width. And you do that dynamically in a background language like PHP or Rails or whatever. Then you're not having the bandwidth issues, but you would do that on the back end. That's a little harder to deal with.
CSS using the background image?
I
Could you do a media call where the background image is called separately depending on, would it make it?
yeah, you could change the background image here.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Sure, that would absolutely work inside of the media query
Right.
and load a smaller version of the image. Absolutely. Yep. All right, any other questions? Good questions? All right.